Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So with the presentation in hand, I know nobody is here to listen to me talk, so I'm just going to say a couple quick opening thoughts, and then I'll turn it over to Jane and Sandra and Lauren. But I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and also thank all of you for your commitment to your clubs. I've often said that arena curlers are among our most dedicated, if not our most dedicated. And even as much as I love curling, I don't know if I'd go through the challenges that you go through just to curl. So we appreciate all of you. I also want to thank the Arena Club Working Group. That was something that Jane chaired, and shortly after I took over as the interim CEO, and it's been a great help for producing content and material. And I know some of them are on the call tonight, including Jane, Teresa. I can't see who else from the group is on, but they're a terrific group doing a lot of good work. Everything from Arena Nationals qualifiers has been discussed to how to help arena clubs operate more efficiently. The other thing I do is remind everybody, if you haven't found it yet, we do have a new content platform available through our website called Our House. And if you sign in and go to that, you do need to be a USA Curling member to see it. You'll see a lot of information related that's valuable to arena clubs. And I'd encourage you to check it out. A lot of it comes from the Arena Club Working Group. Some of it's collected from clubs that have made the transition from arena to dedicated ice. That might be Sandra. Maybe if you mute just for 1 sec, Sandra, and then I'll. With that, though, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, Jane, and Sandra. I think Lauren might have the deck to share it, but it's obviously, like I said, you're not here to listen to me. So with that, Jane and Sandra, take it away.
Do you have 2 things open, Sandra?
I think I did open it twice.
Oh, now you're good.
Anyways. Okay, so anyways.
I'm just going to jump in and
say. Is that
say
better now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you can share my PowerPoint then.
I'm just going to jump in and say a couple of words from the Arena Working Group. And I see Teresa and Lauren and Jonathan and Jeremy on. If I missed anybody, let me know. It's a really great group of arena curlers from all over the country. And we get a lot of great perspectives from different clubs in different areas. So it's been a really great experience to be involved. Last year, I created this Google form and said, hey, if you're interested in one information, fill it out. I'll put it in chat if anybody's not on my form at this point, and once is interested in what we're doing. But Sandra signed up really quickly. And last winter, we had the first of many 2-hour conversations via phone because she's always willing to help me out. And I appreciate her expertise and her willingness to just kind of step in and help arena clubs. I think she'll tell you more about her history with arenas, but we're just really thrilled to have her sharing all of her expertise tonight. And she'll kind of talk to you. I don't think we have a huge group, so I'm sure you'll be able to ask questions as Sandra goes through. And thanks to Lauren for being behind the scenes, handling all the technical stuff, because that is not my forte. So thank you very much, Sandra. Take it away.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so just a little bit, if we go to the first slide there. So my background with curling clubs, I've curled in several, but I've actually been on the board of 4 different curling clubs in very different stages of development. So I was with the Red Deer Curling Club on the board of directors there and president there, which is at the time it was an 8-sheet curling club with a full staff. It's now 12 sheets, one of the biggest curling clubs in the world. And I went from that to a little startup curling club in Pittsburgh. And I wasn't one of the founders, but I found the place just before their very first time out on the ice. And because I had been an instructor in Canada I took over the instruction duties. And it was the surreal life, drawing our houses on with markers and dragging our rocks out before every evening that we were out there curling. So, and then I went to the Potomac Curling Club, which was actually an arena curling club for, it was over 40 years, and had just moved into their own dedicated building. So they were still working through the transition, going from arena to a dedicated club. And then I was with the Dakota Club in Lakeville. And that was a club that was in arena ice. And at the time, Darcy Ellerby was the president, and she came across an opportunity to move the club into a previous grocery store in Lakeville. So it was a retrofit, and then moving that club, which had been in existence for at least 10 years, into its own space. So that's sort of my background. I've seen the gamut of what's going on with these clubs here. So if we can go to the next slide. I just want to say that, you know, I know that there's a lot of people on here that have a lot of experience and background in their clubs. And, you know, if you have any comments, any ideas or questions, please feel free to pipe in. Okay, the next slide. Okay, so I want to start out with something really big picture, and that has to do with strategic planning. So you can't hit the target if you don't know what the target is. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay, thank you. And so when you're gonna go and you're gonna, you know, start up a club, or you're with a club, you really have to decide where you're going with this curling club. So I saw a comment that somebody said not everybody wants to transition from an arena to a dedicated club, and that is absolutely true. So you have to decide as a group what your ultimate goal is going to be, because that's going to dictate what happens, especially when you're speaking and working things out with your arena managers. So if you can just go to the next slide. So what is the goal? If the goal is to be an arena curling club, you're just going to start and develop curling on arena ice. You just want to be the best arena club that you can possibly be. It's a long-term project. You are looking likely for a longer-term partner in an arena, that you have the ability to grow your membership and accumulate the assets and the equipment that curling clubs have and arena curling clubs have. So that would be your goal. That could be a goal for your club. And then everything that you do would be to be the best arena club that you can be. Or if your goal is that eventually you want to be on dedicated ice, whatever that means. So the goal is to get to your own building, whether that's a new build or some sort of a retrofit of an existing like commercial space. Maybe there's a lease agreement after that, or you're going to purchase that space. But the arena club is just a stepping stone onto a bigger asset. So then all equipment acquisitions and decisions with regards to that choice are made with the ultimate goal of you're going to be moving. So everything colors that, the decisions, whether you're going to stay in an arena club or a dedicated space. So we'll go to the next slide. So every arena club needs 3 things for success. Okay, so They need a supportive arena facility. So they need an arena that actually wants you there and is willing to work with you. They need curling experience, and they need some enthusiasm and teamwork. And I've actually never come across an arena curling club in particular that did not have a lot of enthusiasm and teamwork. They're all heart. Now you can get away with 2 out of 3 of those things. Any 2. It's going to be a struggle. It's better if you have all 3, but you can get away with 2. You can get away with curling experience and enthusiasm, even if you don't have a particularly supportive arena. And you can if you have a supportive arena and you've got enthusiasm, you can get away if you don't have a ton of curling experience in your group. If you only have 1 out of those 3, it's a real uphill climb. So this would be one of the things, or these would be the things that you would be working continuously to boost your club's curling experience, their relationship or their partnership with an arena that wants them there, and their enthusiasm and teamwork. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so with those things in mind, an arena curling club is just like a dedicated curling club, in the fact that you can always consider things to be either on the cold side of the glass or the warm side of the glass. And some care needs to be taken to develop both those sides of the glass. So of course, on the cold side of the glass, you've got your ice surface, and your rocks. So that side of the glass is going to focus on the nuts and the bolts of providing a playing area. They're going to focus on creating a process for ice conversion, for acquiring, storing, and maintaining club equipment, whether it's rocks or rock boxes, scoreboards, all the things that you need to be able to convert your ice surface. How you work with your arena staff, like if you're going to be working with Zamboni drivers to, do figure 8 patterns or extra edging. I know that Sean Olson did a presentation on ice making in arenas, and he talked quite a bit about the process for getting as good an ice surface as you can in an arena. And that really depends on the relationship and the help that you get from the arena. Developing routines for ice making and basically training your volunteers. On the warm side of the glass, it's just the same as any other curling club. That has to do with the management and the building of your club and your membership. So what have you got for PR and marketing? You're going to build a database of all the people that have contacted your club so that you can continue to keep in touch with them, hopefully bring them back to your club so that they can try curling again and maybe join just like a dedicated club. That you have introductory events and you have an organized method of instructing people in the sport of curling that's safe. That you have some sort of development of a league or a season schedule. Okay, and this is really important if you want people to stick with you. They kind of want to know what their schedule is going to be, and if they're, like sometimes they like to be in a club championship, you can have a little league that ends up in a club championship and actually have trophies and that kind of stuff. So there would be a development of that and development of club infrastructure. Okay, so if we go to the next slide. One of the main questions that arena clubs have to ask themselves are you a league or are you a club? Because this is really important. You really want to be a club because a league can disappear tomorrow. but a club is an actual organization that is developing in several areas. So clubs or organizations are focused on the future. So a league can run and then it's over, and then things might have to start over from scratch again. But if you're developing an actual organization, that's much different. So if we go to the next slide. So just considering that you're developing organizational infrastructure. So you can see there's all different kinds of things. This is not a complete list by any means, but you can see that you start out with your baby curling club, and you can develop instructional programs for novice and maybe even intermediate curlers, implement budgets as planning tools, streamline your ice making and acquire ice making equipment, continue to do that, build a database of people who have spent time with your club, develop leagues and a curling season, develop your media, your website, your newsletter, emails, communication, develop possibly youth, college and adaptive programs. You can do this sometimes by creating a relationship with a sister club where you maybe travel back and forth, or you send teams to maybe a dedicated club or a club that's nearer to you that you can actually help. They'll help you to develop your teams and players. Develop your board of directors, the meetings, the rules, how your elections run, any sponsor and fundraising programs that you've got going. Just become overall more business-like. You can develop revenue streams, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. You might even decide to host a bonspiel. That's its own animal in an arena club. And then you may or may not eventually get your own building, but if you've put some effort into building this organizational infrastructure, you're actually moving into your building with an actual organization so that you can hit the ground running. And at that point, you can host regional and national events, you can develop competitive programs, and you can continue to build on your mission. So you can see that all the things before the dedicated club is still just as important, whether you actually stay in an arena or you decide that you're going to move into your own space. So the next slide. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. All right. So a little bit more about the ice. So you probably all know this, but just in case, there's different ice surface dimensions out there. There's NHL ice that's 85 feet wide and 200 feet long. There's Olympic ice that's 100 feet wide and 200 feet long. The ice markings on those two ice surfaces are in the same place. It's just that there's more room from the circles to the sideboards. Okay, you can also come across standard or practice rinks that can be smaller. So they can be as small as 65 feet wide and 175 feet long. Arena managers may want to know where your curling lines and markings are going to fall in relation to any of the hockey markings. This could be a huge deal to them. I know in Pittsburgh, we had one of our civil engineers did a CAD drawing of where the curling markings were going to fall in relation to the hockey markings, just to sort of give some peace of mind to the arena manager that we weren't going to mess with what they had going on out there. And maybe that's something, I know that we had at one time some drawings, but that would be something that hopefully would be available to clubs when they're talking to arena managers, is where these ice markings fall. And that, of course, that would be different if you've got 4 or 5 sheets. You're better off, of course, if you're whatever you're paying, the more sheets that you can put out there, the more people you can get out there, and the more money you can make out there. So sometimes it does not make a lot of sense to put just 2 sheets out on an arena. You're better off to, if you can, put 4 or 5 out there. So you can see on that picture, that is the Robert Morris University Island Sports Center. That's where the Pittsburgh Curling Club was for like 10 years. That specific ice center actually had all 3 ice surface dimensions in it. And if we can go to the next picture. So you can see the top left there, that was their Olympic size rink, and that's where the Pittsburgh Curling Club started out. We started on Friday night after public skate, and they wouldn't put the houses on there for us. And so we had to draw our houses on with markers and a scribe. The middle bottom is their NHL size rink. And then the one on the side is a semi-outdoor practice ice. So this was like 80 feet by like 170, something like that. Okay, so like I said, we started out on the Olympic rink, and then we ended up moving unbelievably to the semi-outdoor rink. And I'll get to that in a moment, but if we can go to the next. So this is just, you can find the placement of the hockey markings, the blue lines and all that kind of stuff. It's just important to arena managers so that they understand what their ice surface is going to look like. So if we can go to the next. Okay, so things to consider regarding the ice surface. If you do have a facility that has more than one ice surface, or there are facilities in your area that have more than one ice surface space, time slots and price actually are more important than the actual space. So we ended up moving from the Olympic, their premier ice surface, to a semi-outdoor space. Obviously, we were at the mercy of the weather. So if it was hot outside, it was relatively hot and could be kind of foggy in there. But really, we got a lot more. We got a better ice time. We started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturdays and had it right till the end of the day. They let us put our ice markings on there. We had a better contract with them. It just worked out better for us. And we were actually able to get pretty good ice speed-wise during the better part of the winter. So it actually did work out pretty well. We'll just go to the next slide. Another thing you might want to consider, that modern arenas are actually computerized. So I have talked to several coaches of other sports. The ice pad temperature by sport is obviously very different. So hockey runs their ice a lot colder. So they're somewhere between 16 and 18 degrees. Figure skating is a little bit warmer than that. They want their ice pad somewhere around 18 to 20 degrees. And of course, curling, we want our ice pad more like around 20, maybe 22, so that we can get a surface temperature of closer to like 24. So in Pittsburgh, one of the things that happened was that we figured out that their ice pad was computerized. And so what they did was 2 hours before curling, they programmed their pad temperature to start coming up from the 16 or 17 degrees that they were running it up to 20. So that by the time curling came on, the ice was more curling like already, because they were willing to do that for us. So you never know what these arenas are willing to do unless you actually ask them. Has anybody else ever found anything when it comes to some of the things that some of these arenas will be able to do for you when it comes to their ice or flooding or anything like that?
Nothing in particular, but I just hats off to that entire club for scribing the circles in the houses in the every week to do that. That takes an incredible amount of dedication. So hats off to you guys.
Yeah. Well, okay. And then if we go to the next slide. Okay, so when it comes to equipment storage, obviously one of the main considerations is, will you have acceptable space to store your equipment? Things like your brooms, your scoreboards, your pebble cans, but really, what are you going to do with your rocks? Because if your rocks are not stored in a place that's cold, you basically, it can take like 4 hours for a full granite base bottom curling stone to get to a place where it's not actually going to melt right into the ice. So a lot of clubs have managed to get a space that is already cold enough, or they've bought deep freeze or commercial freezers that they can move their stones into, or some clubs actually have ceramic bottom stones so that they can actually, those stones will come down to temperature in about 30 minutes. But this is a huge consideration, is that your stones are actually ready to play in like about 30 to 45 minutes. And the next, and then once you have an agreement that you can work with, then you would do the best that you can to work on your speed and your curl. So, and this is where your arena curling ice makers, they are actual ice makers. So they need training and information. They also need equipment. And so things like infrared guns, weather stations, a proper place that you can store your rocks, and a process for converting hockey ice to curling ice that actually gets you the best ice surface that you can get. And we tested this out several times when we were in Pittsburgh, because coming from a big club in Alberta, we would convert the ice and I would walk out there and I would go, this doesn't feel like curling ice. It doesn't feel like curling ice. We have to do something different. So the next week we would try something different again. The next week we would try something different again. And we finally came up with a process where the Zamboni came out and did a wet run to fill in all the skate marks. And then they came back and they did a dry cut to get that tap water off of there, which gave it a greasy feel. And after that, then we used the brooms and we pebbled and we ran rock boxes, and we managed to get the ice surface feeling a lot like curling ice. And I think that there is a process out there that's very similar to this that Kevin Madsen has helped to develop, but you can get a surface that feels like curling ice and feels very close to it. Now, when it comes to the curl, this is how you get fast speed. But when it comes to the curl, obviously, as the season goes on, arenas get very bowl shaped. And so if you can work with the arena to do edging, so edging is a key, so they have to come out. And sometimes if you volunteer to help them, they will help you do the edging, or you can help them do the edging. So, so you take off, a few feet of, or a few inches of ice, or part of an inch of an ice, or whatever, a few feet out from the boards all the way around, and then they can possibly put a little bit of flooding in the middle to try and keep things a little bit more level. Of course, the further away you are from the boards, the better off you are. So you would never spread your sheets out so that you are close to the boards. You would like get them as close to the center as you can get them. Okay, and the next one.
Sandra, I
Yes.
just want to say, we have a couple questions in the chat. So, Dustin has said, I would have thought that the colder the ice surface, the faster it would be. Does the higher temp allow the stone to curl more? So what's the advantage, disadvantage of the colder ice temp on curling?
You're just gonna get a better, you're gonna get a better pebble, you're gonna get a better ice surface, like, I'm not up to date on all my things to do with a dew point and everything else, but, you would, like, I know
So-
that curling ice, the pad temperature is up a little bit higher.
So I think you're saying about the pebbling is, and Lauren probably could jump in because she has more knowledge and I try to learn from her. But when you're pebbling and the ice surface is really cold, the pebble doesn't stand up, it just kind of flattens. And that affects the rocks curling on the ice. Lauren, did I get that right? Are you there? You better help me.
Yeah, I'm here. It's a really complicated interaction between the ice and the pebble and the rocks. My understanding is that there's typically a sweet spot for how the rocks will behave and play the fastest and curl the most. And that's going to depend on a number of things. Like you said, dew point is a big factor into that. But I think typically at a curling club, and it's a different environment than it is in an arena, but at a curling club, usually somewhere between 23 and 24 degrees is your kind of sweet spot for that. If you get colder than that, then like Sandra said, things slow down. If you get warmer than that, then things get really greasy and it can be kind of sketchy out there. But yeah, it's usually around 23, 24 degrees for the ice for the surface temperature.
For the
that you're
surface
looking for.
temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what, if you have a very cold surface temperature, then it's going to be really slow. So we, like our surface temperatures, I know that between 24 and probably about 26 degrees is best. Once you get past 26, like you sort of go over the hump and now your surface is going to be a little bit on the melting side. So now that's going to slow down too. But our ice surface temperature usually runs somewhere around 24, 25. If you're going to get fast ice. Was there another question?
Yes, I'm having trouble sliding. Hold on a second. So Elizabeth said, our routine after the dry cut right now is 2 broom passes, pebble, then nip at least once, maybe more if it's a bad ice night. This is all depending if we get the ice on time, of course. Yeah, that's definitely an issue. Does anyone know any other benefits to flooding for the arena? We're having trouble getting their buy-in on the ice making. So flooding I think, Elizabeth, are you trying to say, like, is there an advantage to flooding for hockey and ice skating, not just curling, right? Okay.
Well, one of the things is that there's actually a benefit to the ice arena if they edge. Okay, so if they keep their ice down thin. Okay, so a lot of times you're not going to get them to do a bunch of flooding because then it's going to cost them more in utility costs. But if they can do more with regards to edging and keeping their ice surface thinner all the way around, then there's a utility benefit for them. So that's one of the things.
If I can add a little bit to that, I think I've never played hockey or figure skated, but my understanding is that both of those sports also would generally prefer, they don't need the tolerances that we do in curling for flat ice, but I believe they also generally both prefer flatter ice to like a saddle shape or a Pringle chip that we sometimes have seen in arenas. So yeah, if they can make curlers happy, they would certainly also be making the other sports happy as well.
Yeah. And one of the things too is that, of course, labor is a huge problem for these arenas. Like it costs money for them to bring people in after hours to run edgers and do extra work. So if you have an arena that's open to being assisted by volunteer helpers like curlers, and sometimes you might find an arena that would be open to that.
Okay, we have another question from a newbie. What do you mean by edging? So I think that's a little explanation that would be helpful
So,
too.
Edging is like, it's kind of like running a lawnmower along the edge of the arena to shave it down. So arenas become very bowl shaped, okay? And you couldn't like flood to bring up the center, because then you'd end up with really, really thick ice. So it's just it's a function of how these Zambonis flood, and then all of a sudden, all this and the skating and everything else, they just naturally become bowl shaped. And so to combat that, they have to do what's called edging.
Okay.
And somebody said that they ran a nipper. Who's running a nipper on their arena ice?
I think that was Elizabeth, maybe. We also have a nipper, although we've been told to nip and use a rock box because of
Okay.
the pebble. So, but
We were always too afraid to run a nipper on there because of course you've got the uneven ice issue, and are you going to like damage your nipper? So we just went with the rock boxes. But we found that, you know, after you run your dry cut, and then you're going to have a ice surface that's full of frost because it's just like shaved off the top layer. Then you have to take a big bristle broom, like one of the big janitorial ones that are like 5 feet across, big brush, and you have to brush that frost off and then run a mop. Then you can do your pebble, and you can do a pebble routine just like a normal curling club. You can do you like a hot fine or extra fine on the bottom and then a fine on top, and do 2 pebbles. And then you can actually run your rock box and then a mop again, and hopefully you have more than one mop head because they'll be soaked. So, but it's just the process that you do is just to keep track of what kind of ice times you're getting, keep track of what the weather is like outside, and do, you know, charts and graphs just like ice makers do, and you can really hone your knowledge on how you get the best ice surface possible.
And I'll do a little plug for Lauren put a lot of work into the documents that are in it's called Our House, right? On the website, there's a lot in there about pebbling and ice surface and equipment. And the Zoom session with Sean is on the same place where you could find this link on the USA Curling website. So if you want to go back and look at that video from Sean with more details about ice making. So go ahead, Sandra.
Okay, and then the next slide. Okay, so then you also have to think of the warm room side of the glass. So you should consider negotiating with the arena for one or more areas where you can do the following things off ice. A place where you can actually greet people, like that you can run it like your own little clubhouse, that you can provide instruction. Do you have a place where you can run video? that you can do administration, like sign waivers, do signups, sign people up for leagues, memberships, that kind of stuff. Do you have a little mobile office? Like we had a cart that had all our stuff in there, including brochures and everything. And we had a storage place for that. We also had a mobile pro shop where we had t-shirts and jackets and pins and everything else. So we had a mobile pro shop that we would wheel out. And you can see this is a picture of a change room, a hockey change room. We had one and sometimes two hockey change rooms that we would use. And yes, they didn't smell very nice, but we had space where people would come in, and we had one room that we would run the instruction in, and the other room was kind of like our club room where we had a pro shop, and we, visited with people and all that kind of stuff. So is there a way that you can set it up so that you've got an off-ice space like a club? You also have to make sure that you have safekeeping of personal items, because and from arenas, right? It's a public space, so you've got people coming in and out. And if you don't have a place where you are safekeeping their purses and everything else, you just don't want anything bad to happen to your curlers or anything like that. And does anybody else have anything fun that they do for the warm side of the glass in an arena? What's this picture? Is that a mobile? Is that a mobile?
Yeah, it's Al
club?
Dahlman from the Ogden Curling Club. So we do a lot of ice for other people. The conversation was about having a ice king. We have one, but we don't have time to use it during our regular league. We only really bring it to our club in preparation for our bond spiels. But we do travel to do McCall's, Stanley's, and Victor's. We used to do Hollywood's ice. So we travel around. So we got a trailer so we can travel around and do ice crew. We usually just charge beer. So it's just a shameless plug. That's all.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. I thought maybe you had a mobile clubhouse in there or something, but probably that too, hey?
It's got a false floor. We can take up to 5 sets of stones on the bottom with the weight evenly distributed. We have our Ice King in there, and then all the brooms and brushes and pebblers and all of that, all self-contained.
That's great. Okay, so anything else on the warm side of the glass? We can go to the next slide. And then just some things to consider for the warm room side of the glass. Okay, so, you have to take care that you are building that club atmosphere on the warm side of the glass as well. So, like pictures, like I said, you could have a little club championship with a trophy presentation. You can have your own merchandise and maybe a pro shop. You can make sure that your people get certified as instructors and ice makers and officials. So get some training for the people in your club. That's a great thing to do. Of course, there's your virtual club where you have your website and possibly a Facebook page or Instagram, or however you're marketing your club, and email campaigns and that kind of stuff to try and build your membership and keep in touch with people. So that these are all things on the warm room side of the glass. Has anybody else got anything to add to any of these?
I know there's lots of discussion about merchandise and what people have and how they order it. So maybe we'll do that in another session sometime, because I think the idea of how people or you can put it in the chat now if you have a special store that you use, or do you keep t-shirts? We have this whole discussion in our club. Should we keep stuff on site? Should we do an online ordering system? And we're open I know from Pineland's standpoint, we're always open to hear what people are doing with their merch.
I think one of the things that Pittsburgh did when um, they got their first order of merchandise was they pre-sold all the t-shirts. So they pre-sold the t-shirts and then just brought in a few extra. So that order was actually already paid for. And then we always had stuff on hand for when we did learn to curls and stuff, which we were just like any other arena club. We were in constant training and learn to curl mode, right? Every week there were somebody that was coming in that was learning how to curl. And this stuff was just really popular. We didn't have a lot of inventory. We didn't keep a big inventory, but we didn't have a lot of stuff, you know, where you had a bunch of money tied up in inventory, which isn't very good for an arena club either.
I'm happy to jump in. This is David from Silicon Valley. Lauren was slightly prodding me off on the side to chime in because we've been really lucky with a set of enthusiastic volunteers that have also taken on kind of a social committee to find opportunities for us to exist in the community as a club, but despite not having a a permanent home so that we can kind of come together and be seen. We're also lucky that our arena, the two arenas we curl at, both have great on-site bars, and so we get to make use of those. And then on top of that, when it comes to the warm side of the glass and what you were talking about with acting like a business, I think it connects in a huge way to your website and your merch and all these other things. And a big part of that is how you present yourselves. And what I probably care a little too much about, but is the branding piece where we try to encourage consistency that means that we're going to be an evolving image over time, but the way that we look, the things we create are consistent or at least thought about so that it doesn't come and go as volunteers come and go. Because you'll kind of see with some arena clubs, in my experience, is that if you have a certain cohort or a certain person that's doing a lot, they might have the one or two talents you need or different tools or access to things. And then if they move, change, whatever, that cohort or that kind of like vibe in the club tends to wane. Whereas if instead you kind of ensure that everybody's working together on common resources, common alignment on how we're going to look, suddenly it starts to be this thing, this engine that self-fulfills. And that way it echoes across your merch, your online presence. And yes, big fan of Slack and automations. So sorry for talking so much.
No, no, like this is all really important stuff to make sure that you are putting as much effort into the warm room side of the glass and the club people side of the glass as you can. Okay, and so then the next slide. Okay, so there are, and you were just talking about them, there are other benefits of possibly being in an arena. You said that they have a bar and possibly you could like market in that bar, like put a sign up. I know at Potomac, they have a big sign, curling is here in their arena, a big neon sign. Some of these big arenas have actual administrative offices where they have their own marketing departments. They will actually help your arena club with marketing expertise. They will help your club find sponsorships or help you to understand how to get sponsorships. They can sometimes even help you understand how to develop additional revenue streams. For example, the Island Sports Center actually sat us down and taught us how to get hotels as sponsors. So when we had a bonspiel, we actually knew how to book a block of rooms and how we were going to get, a kickback or for the block of rooms if we promoted that, which actually was part of our revenue stream for our bonspiel in that arena. And the marketing department actually taught us how to do that. You can also work with them for special events like Christmas events. Sometimes they just like having the flavor of another winter sport in their building. And so they love to have something different other than figure skating and hockey, and curling is just a great addition for them. So you can work with them on Halloween or Thanksgiving or Christmas events or whatever. So those are some of the other benefits of working with these arenas. Okay, and then the next one. Okay. So making sure that you've got people looking out for the ice side of the glass, and then the warm room side of the glass are some of the things that you should keep in mind when you're actually talking with the arena managers, or you're negotiating possibly a contract with an arena manager, that you've got the big picture of all the little things that you can be asking for or finding out if they have. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there's other things out there. And the next one. Okay, and I just want to say that nothing should be for free. Okay, so I've heard of arena clubs where their arena managers have been nice enough to give them free ice time to sort of get up and running, and that those arena clubs have in turn offered free curling. And I'm going to tell you, that's not a thing. So it's not fair to your volunteers to ask them to staff a bunch of events that nothing is really coming back to the club. Free has been shown never to be a good way. Like if somebody gets something for free, then you turn around and you ask them to pay for it. Now they don't really want to pay for it. So even if they have to pay something nominal, like $10, $20 or something, and that's something that you would tell your arena manager. We have to fundraise because we have to pay for our rocks. So thank you for the ice time, but we're going to put proceeds towards paying for our rocks. They can understand that. Okay. And next. And when it comes to contracts, now you can be super creative if you can. Okay, so I've heard of all kinds of contracts. There's pay per hour, there's revenue sharing. Okay, there's maybe pay per game, like a public skate. So they come in and they buy a wristband, and the arena gets whatever they get and they're okay with that, or they get up to a certain level and then whatever comes after that goes back to the club. So there's different ways that you can do that. You can structure some sort of a partnership where, let's say the arena gets 75% of the money and you get 25% so that you can pay for your rocks and everything else. So there are different ways that you can pay for these things. When you're trying to figure these things out, you have to ask yourself, are you a customer or are you a partner? Because if you're a paying customer and you're paying per hour, just like anybody else, then you should get your ice time as promised every week, just like any other customer. It's hard right now because I know that COVID has put a lot of arenas behind the 8 ball, because a lot of them were shut down for a year or two, and they didn't necessarily get all of their lost revenue paid for. And in the meantime, they even had building maintenance problems. So they're really behind the 8 ball. So it's maybe not the best time to be trying to negotiate something with an arena, but you never know if you don't ask. The other thing is that while arenas might be behind the 8 ball, so are some buildings with commercial space. There's a lot of commercial space that has gone empty. And there's could be more coming online, and that could be an opportunity for an arena club to move to their own space and retrofit a building. So does anybody have any other opportunities of how they have structured contracts with arenas besides pay per hour?
This is Jonathan from Texas. I know Houston's pay per hour, but Austin Lone Star Club pays per year, and they get a fixed number of hours for the whole year, and preferred, I guess, negotiate which days are the preferred days for leagues. But they have fixed number of hours for the whole year, and they prepay the whole. They make a monthly payment, but it's contracted for a whole year. The number of hours for the whole year, including a priority weekend for the Bondsfield.
Oh,
One of
that sounds good. So then you would know, you know, what your entire costs are. Does anybody else have any other ways that they structure their contracts with arenas?
I can jump in on one that's the contract itself for us is fairly standard. You know, we're buying ice time a quarter at a time for an hourly rate, with the occasional skip depending on what the rink needs. But the part that's creative and interesting with us is that that organization wants to offer daytime corporate events as a revenue stream for their dead ice. The challenge for them is that we own the majority of the equipment, and we have the market effectively cornered on people that actually know how to curl and how to teach curling. And so they find themselves without adequate instructors during the daytime. And so we're able to provide instructors for certain corporate events that they are selling directly to their customers. But by doing that, we have a formula based on the number of participants that show up and the number of our instructors that show up, where they give us a rebate against our contract. So we get effectively negative charges for every volunteer hour that shows up. And they also give our volunteers a coupon for the bar. So, and we've managed to keep them pricing that at the amount
and
per
that's an
pitcher.
opportunity that a lot of arena clubs have, is that they can run daytime curling events. And the money that comes in from that is then put against their regular ice fees, so they can, you know, bump up their bank account, right? So that they're not in dire straits. They know they're going to make their ice, their rock payments and that kind of stuff. You just have to make sure that that you are getting full credit for that, because a lot of times it tends to be the same people that are out there running these corporate events. And if the club is not getting the value for that, it can, after a while, people feel like they're being taken advantage of. So, but I think that Lake Placid Curling Club had a similar arrangement where they agreed to so many corporate events per year, and then people knew what they were running, and the arena just went ahead and booked it and scheduled it, and the club had people show up to run it, and then they got credit for that.
100%. You said it super well. There's one important thing I think that gets lost in the conversation around corporate events, which is they are like a learn to curl, but they are absolutely not a learn to curl. And so it's really important to also give your volunteers the grace to like take it a little easier. These are people here for a different kind of experience. Teach them curling, but you don't have to like really push your volunteers too hard or twist arms to do it. You need the minimum amount to staff the event safely.
Yeah. Has anybody tried any of these other things where you do like a pay per game, like they buy a wristband sort of thing? No. We had this deal with Island Sports Center in Pittsburgh when we moved over to the semi-outdoor rink. So basically, they didn't trust us that we were actually collecting money, right? So basically they said, okay, so you can have the outside starting at 4 o'clock, and we want people to come and pay for a wristband. And they can pay the same price as the public skate, which was $10 a wristband. And they said, so the first 50 wristbands will go to them. And then all the wristbands after that will be split between the clubs. So 75% would go to the club and 25% would go to back to the arena. And we started at 4. So we ended up running 3 draws back to back. 3 draws of 5 sheets. So 40 curlers per block, which was 120 curlers full, which we worked like crazy to fill that ice. We had little small like groups, 10 or 12 people a sheet. We had leagues running, we had all kinds of stuff, and we actually made money on $10 wristbands. So that was a really great deal. Okay, so
There's been some great comments in the chat. Not going to go through and read them all. I'm not sure if there were any questions, but there are some great suggestions in here from various clubs. So I guess I have a question for Lauren. Are you able to pull the chat out somehow when you from this, wherever Lauren is?
Yeah, I'll have a transcript of that. I don't know that I can share it easily. I can try to transcribe some of the or make a note of some of the bigger points, and we can make a PDF of some notes and comments and stuff. But I don't know that there's a way to publish the chat directly.
Okay, well, at least if there's a way that
I
we can
see a
capture
couple-
this information, that would be great.
I see a couple of comments on here. Yes, I do. There's a few comments about name tags. Yes, name tags are important. Name tags with the name of your club and your logo. That is a big seller. People love that. And also, I see that it says our arena let us paint a big Home of Derby City Curling Club mural on the front of the building. Yes, a big mural that you can either hang or paint somehow on the front of the building so that people know that curling is there. If they'll let you do that, that is a great thing to do. Morgantown's got a curling club. That's great.
Hey, Morgantown. I just put in the chat that if you're interested in being connected with our arena working group, and we'll keep in touch with you. If you haven't signed up yet, there's that link that you can follow, and we try not to spam people all the time, but as things come up, and you can always put in questions to us about things you'd like to see us talk about or cover in the future, because hopefully we'll have these sessions. You know, we had one in June on the ice, and then we have Sandra now, and so we'd like to do another one. And I think we also got to see the responses from the was it Gov 4.0 survey that was done. So I know people made comments on there. I see Katie's on here, and she made a comment about more of these kind of sessions. So we're listening to you, Katie. But we try to really, we're all arena curlers, but there's lots of different options out there and a lot of different clubs. So we really want to try and hit the mark in terms of what people really would like to see us working on. We're always open for suggestions.
And the last slide, I just want to say that one of the things that we did before, this is years ago, there are several articles that we published in Curling News, and they had to do with what you can do to prepare your club for an upcoming Olympics, which is something that you should be actually working on, you know, a couple of years in advance. And there were a couple articles that were just step by step. These are the things that you need to do. And some of them were starting 2 years in advance. And so Jane and I are going to update those and put them out there, because I heard from several clubs that they literally followed it like a recipe, and they worked. So we'll get those out there. But when it comes back again to that strategic planning, you can't hit the target if you don't know what that is. So in all of this, somebody in your club needs to be on the lookout for those big picture opportunities. So if you are a club that is using an arena space as a stepping stone on the road to your own dedicated space, you have to have one or more people out there on the lookout for these opportunities, because you never know when they're going to cross your path. And somebody has to be willing to pull the trigger on them. That's the thing, is that you got to be ready and pull the trigger. So that's where, if you know what you want, it's easier for somebody to come across it. And if your goal is to stay and be the best arena club you can be, maybe you need a commercial walk-in freezer or some better equipment or a better process with your arena. And those are things too that you can keep your eyes out for ideas and ways that you can make your club the best it can possibly be. And so that was it, unless anybody has any other comments or questions.
Looks like Elizabeth has her hand up, so go ahead, Elizabeth. And thank you, Sandra. That was great. Appreciate it.
Hi guys. So I was just hoping to see if anyone had any resources, because our club's having a huge struggle with our arena. They don't really care about curling. We have a lot of staff turnover. So we're trying to branch out to look at other arenas, and there's plenty around us, but hockey is huge. So if anyone has any proposals already written up or any ideas on how we can try to reach the staff and just be like, hey, this is an alternative to hockey. Because right now we're looking at, if we go to another arena, we're looking at like getting the ice at midnight, getting the ice at 11:30. And we're fortunate enough right now to be on a junior rink, so the kids aren't out late. So we're getting 8 p.m. ice times, which works for our club. But we also only have like 65 members right now. So it's like this balancing act of, we want more ice, a better arena that's going to work with us. But we're just stuck right now. So if anyone has any resources or proposals that they've sent to other arenas, please send them to me, or contact Long Island Curling, because I need help. We need help.
So Elizabeth, you said you have a practice sheet. Is that what you have?
We have like a junior rink. So our rink barely fits 4 sheets. Okay. So it's only for younger hockey players. So luckily, all the other arenas that are like full size, they have hockey up until the wee hours of the morning all winter. So we would be looking at getting ice times very, very, very late. So
and is that all year round, or you don't have any space in the summer to do anything, or no?
We would be stuck with only doing summer leagues, and then they would still be pretty late. The last time we tried to find somewhere else to go, it was pretty interesting. They're like, yeah, we can give you ice time 12:30 at night. And we were like, oh, great, fantastic. That being said, our arena has let us we have a freezer on site, and we have a little mini shed inside the ice house, which is great, but we're also getting charged almost $400 an hour for ice that they don't care to maintain. So we're just struggling.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, so if anyone has resources, please send them to me. LAcurling.org, please.
Yeah. The idea of staying or jumping is always a tough one, because we switched rinks with the promise of better ice time and slightly increased fees. And then that rink was bought out by Black Bear, which is buying a lot of hockey rinks, and our prices went up significantly, and we didn't get the the ice times that we were promised by the previous owner. So it's always tough to look at that. And you're in a hot, you're in a very high income market too, out on Long Island. So we'll ask around. We'll definitely ask around. So
where are you at, Elizabeth?
Long Island, New York. So we are probably about 45 minutes east. The rink is probably like probably 45 minutes east of New York City.
Is that still the same place that it's been for like 15
Well,
years?
Yeah, our club is not that old. We had our 10th anniversary in 2018. I guess it's 15. No, we were at
Okay,
Newbridge.
I've been
and
there
Newbridge
before.
kicked us out.
I've been to your building.
No
I
way!
ran a
You've been
learn
to
to
the
curl
hub?
there like a long time ago. I know what it is. It's an older building, right?
No, well, I'm not sure. The hub where we're at now, they're a newer facility, but I don't know if it used to be something else a long time ago. But we were at Newbridge Arena on the South Shore, and they were much, much older. They had really cool, like this really cool.
Yeah,
That's
it was
what
a super cool building.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not there anymore.
So we'll ask around, Liz, definitely, for proposals for a hockey
Awesome,
or
thank
arena.
you.
Yep, we'll
One-
ask.
One of the things I would suggest in that space is that although many ice rinks are fully private ventures, if you have any in your area that are at least partly publicly funded, there's often either covenants or requirements or kind of an expectation from whatever public entity, whether that was a county, a city, whatever, a parks department, that they aren't exclusively going to one specific sport. They tend to want a diversity of sport, especially one where you can then talk to curling's like adaptability and its ability to hit different markets, and that it has a full connection all the way through to like the NGB and as a result the Olympic movement. It allows you to kind of like push the buttons or work the refs. It's not something you want to come in hot on directly at any arena, but it's the kind of way where you can also create long-term support by even asking your local folks, whether that's a city council or somebody that like, hey, did the city pay for this? Or if you search through old minutes, seeing what sort of tax breaks, grants, etc., and figuring out if there's a way you can like find a soft spot.
Thank you. That's a great idea because we just started tapping our local city councils and going out to like our county councils, and because we're looking for ultimately a dedicated facility home. So we're like, hey, we're looking for this. We would love to. We're a 501c3. We've been around 15 years, like, doing all the things. So that's a good idea because there are actually publicly funded rinks, quite a few of them on the island. So I haven't really looked into that. I'm going to write that down. Thank you.
This is the great thing when you're talking to people all over the country. So we got Hallie talking to New York. There we go. And there are lots of different models. So the more we can find out about what people are doing and how they're doing it, the more we can learn from each other's. In Ogden, they partnered with an adaptive nonprofit to provide some recreational opportunities. That's great because most arenas are very ADA compliant, right? So you can do adaptive aquatics, right? Adaptive curling, because you don't have all the stairs and ups and downs that some of the older curling clubs have. Anybody else have any other questions or comments or suggestions? It's been very helpful. The more we can learn from each other, the better it is that we can pick up one thing from somebody and make a change. Teresa, you have your hand up, your physical hand.
I should have just clicked that one. I was just wondering, as Dustin wrote in there, Sioux Falls Curling is trying to move in, really in the beginning of trying to move to dedicated facility. And we were both just wondering, is like Sandra or anybody have any like information or just some advice on how to start and really get that going?
There's actually a lot of people out there that could help you with that. Because a lot of the things, like if you're talking about like your ice mats and that kind of stuff. So anything that you put into like a retrofit, that equipment becomes movable, right? So your ice mats, you can take them and move them to another place, that kind of thing. You have to really watch out with your equipment that it's conducive to the climate that you're in. I know that like some compressors actually have to be indoors. They don't like the cold, if you can believe that or not. So like just because you get a good price on a compressor doesn't mean that it's going to work for your building. So I know that we bought a compressor in Lakeville that we found out that didn't like the cold weather because we bought it from an East Coast company. Of course, it's a lot milder out there. So yes, that compressor worked well on the East Coast, but did not work in Minnesota. So just things like that. But you know, there's, you know, like, you know, Paul and Darcy Ellerby from Dakota, they did a lot when it comes to retrofitting. And also, you know, even just like a Stu from Columbus, he did a lot, and then the Evergreen Club. So that would be something that the Arena Curling Committee, I bet, has an entire section, a library of, you know, the best ways to sort of put bids out on compressors and put bids out on mats, that kind of thing. I know that, you know, like even just little tips and tricks. One of the things that we figured out in Dakota was that we got pipes, our mats, we got clear ones. There are white ones. So if you get white pipes, guess what? You don't have to paint ever because your ice is already white. Whereas we had clear pipes, so then our glycol was showing through and it was yellow. So then we had to do something because we were in a commercial space. We couldn't really paint because paint is messy. And what do you do with it at the end? So we put down Tyvek, which actually works very well. But if we would have just bought white pipes, we would never have had to worry about this. Just these little things, you know?
So just a quick kind of a plug here, I guess, for the Our House platform. We don't have necessarily, I don't see an equipment buying guide in here, but there is a new facility planning section that's under the club management. Sorry, I need to go back to it real quick. It's under club management and then new facility planning. So that has some information about fundraising and building plans. I believe Evergreens is in there, and I think Columbus is in there too. I could be wrong. But there's some resources in there as well.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I really need to like dive into that.
There's a lot in there.
And I think it's good to try to find clubs in your area, because you know, like Sandra mentioned, the temperature, but also the cost of things and how people move in different areas is different depending on your just your demographics and your costs for
Yeah.
that.
And your utilities might be completely different in one area versus another, you know?
It looks like Al had his hand up at one point. So Al, do you want to say something?
Yeah, so I was just gonna kind of go into the question about transitioning. We're way far off. We've just kind of been playing around with the idea. However, we happen to fall in because we are on a college/county multi-purpose land. The entrepreneurship class took our club as a capstone project and did a market survey about what in our local area would it take for, you know, a new build versus a retrofit construction versus what's our target, you know, demographic or advertising. So if you have those people in your club or anybody in that space that will do that for you, that's kind of, I guess, the first thing we wanted to do is understand what our environment would support. So just to thank, we lucked out and it was a great, we got a 40-page, capstone project from the students, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who wants it. But it was just a neat opportunity, and it kind of let Jane, wants that. So it was really neat. So if you have those people, just ask people in your club what they can do for you. That was it.
Yep. And when it comes to like back to that developing organizational infrastructure, just encouraging people to get involved with areas of the club that they have a passion for. Like not everybody wants to pebble, right? Not everybody wants to be out on the ice. And not everybody wants to be an instructor. So what do they have a passion for? And then encourage them in those areas. Like some people are really good at like merchandise or just administrative functions or websites or whatever. So I know like I went to a new club this one time, and the first thing that happened was I got handed a pebble tank. I'm like, I've never touched one of these things in my life. Like where I'm from, if a curler was going to touch a pebble tank, the ice makers would have a heart attack. But there's all kinds of people that love to do that kind of stuff and to learn about it and to get really good with that. So, and just to be able to build those areas of information and expertise for everybody is great too.
I see Dustin has his hand up.
Hey, just want to thank you guys for doing this. And while everyone's still on the call, I could ask about 10,000 questions regarding the move to dedicated ice, but something that I'm looking for in more of a short term that we kind of talked about earlier was building on that social aspect of the club and the community and the thing that's so important there. And I would like to get some more buy-in from that. So as I said in chat earlier, we're on the shoulder seasons of hockey, so we're not even curling during the winter time. But I would really like to keep the aspect of our club, meeting or doing something. So we're looking at forming like a social group or a committee or something like that would get together and just say like, hey, if you're interested, this month we're going to meet here on this date or whatever it might be. And I was just wondering if there's a lot of great information on a lot of people on this call. So I was wondering if anyone had some input on that as far as driving the community, what things that you do outside of the season, because so much of the people that I know and are friends with are from the club. And so in the summer, like some of us golf, but I would like to do something that gets people out and mingling with different league nights as well as in off season. So I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, everyone.
I've actually seen a couple of things. One of the clubs I was with, we joined a bocce league. There was a bocce league that was really popular. So during the summer we did bocce, and that was a lot of fun. And also I know that some people joined a bowling league together just for like a few weeks. So there was that. I've also seen clubs that have gone into their community parades. So they create a float or some sort of thing that they can all be a part of, and then they'll be in the parade. Actually, we did that in Lakeville, and we had little remote control curling rocks that we like had little things. There was like 4 of them. We drove them all around. It was with big banners on a car and stuff. It was a lot of fun. So there's all kinds of things that people can do.
So Dustin, for Jersey Pinelands has a couple of really creative people. So we've done like they called it a road rally, but it's like a scavenger hunt where people got in teams of 4 in a car and they came up with all these crazy things to do. One of our members is the mascot for a local, I don't know if it's a double or triple A baseball team. So we'll go to the baseball game and we get discount tickets and we use it kind of as a fundraiser. There are some restaurants that will have what they call dine and donate. So it's a weekday night and we all try to go and just have dinner, but then 10% of all the proceeds come back to the club. And the other thing is, if you're not curling during regular curling season, the biggest thing is to try to get your members to go out and go to bonspiels. I think that has so much advantage when people are out spieling and if they go to dedicated ice, they're like, wait, we want this. And it helps build a bond. For a while, we were using a thing called Doodle. If anybody's ever done that for meetings where you go in and see, what time the meeting is, and we had someone that would list all the different bond spiels, and people would go in and check off which spiels they were available for, and it helped people find teams. So that really helped us, but we really promote sending people out, and we kind of have cultures as you get more experience to then go and take the newbies and go out places. So I think one of the biggest things is if you can get people to go out and spiel, that would be a big thing. I'll be quiet now.
Watch parties are a fantastic idea. So if you have major curling events happening, finding a bar that would agree to let you stream it or put it on their TVs if it's being broadcast on American television, that part's hard. But if they're willing to let you, do things on YouTube or whatever, rewatching an old game is a fantastic way to bring awareness to the sport into the community. And if you get a rowdy table that's engaged with that, suddenly people get curious, or they'll have that moment of like, oh yeah, I watched that, and then you can have that bar table side conversation of, oh, yeah, here's how you watch it, and suddenly you're now signing somebody up for your mailing list or your Learn to Curl when your season does start.
And it looks like David has his hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the somebody was asking about advice when it comes to like that transition to dedicated ice. I've only been in the broader orbit of those things, so I can't speak a ton to that. But the really important thing I advise anybody that ever even remotely starts to think about it is, and it actually goes back to one of the initial slides about enthusiasm, which is that you actually have to have a really, really clear-eyed look and be your own critic. And I talk about that in terms of don't fall in love with the idea, don't fall in love with any of it. Really, really operate as a business in this space. So that means setting for yourself before you even get to a specific plan, setting appropriate boundary conditions for you and your club. What's the risk you're willing to tolerate? What are the things that must be met, and then never waver on that. It's really, really easy to convince yourself to start giving up your profit a bit, like margin, or start operating at a loss, or start other things, move too far away from a huge part of your membership base, like whatever those things might be. If you start to do one compromise, suddenly you end up with 2 and 3 and 4, and suddenly the plan starts to fall apart, or you're operating on trust instead of contracts and the dollars and cents in your bank account. So it's really just set those clear goals and boundaries, and then never fall in love with the idea, because otherwise the enthusiasm of your fellow members will often act like a wind at your back, pushing you along, and you'll feel this pressure to continue even if it's not the wisest.
Does anybody else have more comments or suggestions? This is really good stuff we've got here.
Yeah, I just want to say that, like at the very beginning, I said I was with a very large curling club in Alberta, and I was the president there. And then I came to Pittsburgh a few years later, and I was a president there. And that little arena curling club was like double the work of that big club that I was with. And so I know how much work you guys are putting into this. It is hard slugging out there. It is a ton of work, but one of the things is that what I found is that arena clubs and all the people in there, they're just all heart. So, that's one of the things that I think that you guys have going for you. And, I used to say, hey, if you've got one turn that works, you've got a game. So get over it.
So cool. And if anybody's on here and doesn't know, if you're on Facebook, there is an arena group on Facebook where there's always lots of questions and support there. If you're on Facebook, hopefully you're connected with that. And you know, I think if you look on the USA Curling website, you can find a club, so you can always like try to find other arena clubs that might be near you. Or they're popping up all the time, right? So you just never know when somebody might open up a few hours away. So, and support. So I don't know that we have anything else for this evening. We kind of went over our time, but I think the discussion was really good. If you think of other questions, and Lauren, you want to put your email up there since Lauren's now officially working with the USA Curling. So she's the one that has the official email address. But send some things to Lauren, and then I put the link up for the Google form if you want to fill it out for the arena group, that we can stay connected with us. But certainly we want to stay connected with each other. So
yeah, if anybody has any questions after this, feel free to reach out to me. If you lose my email address from here, it's up on the website under the staff page. It's also just my name at usacurling.org. But yeah, definitely if you have ideas for stuff that you want to see later, if there's, we had a town hall on Monday and I had a conversation with somebody. I got some really good feedback for some stuff that I think I'd like to, I haven't shared it with them yet, but I'd like to share with the arena working group soon for some stuff that we can work on in the future. So yeah, if you have ideas, we're always happy to hear them.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Sandra, for your time. I really appreciate it. That was it was a great organized presentation. So thank you. And I'm sure we'll be back with you again sometime. There'll be another 2-hour call in your future.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, great graphic.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.